Will the Nets be better than we all think? How have the Rockets integrated CP3 into their offense? Can OKC give the Warriors a run for their money? The only question left is, say it with me, you win. Hey sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the BBALL Breakdown Podcast. I think we're back. We're ready to go. We're going to be our regular Monday podcast. Me and Dave Dufour. Dave, are you there?
I think so. Am I?
I think so.
Are any of us here?
We are.
That's
right.
The real question.
Yeah, because literally, all I see is just light bouncing off of you, but I don't really see you. So it's unclear if it's what that means. So me and Jim Carrey can have a discussion about that at some point soon.
Well, and I'm with Bees, man. I think we're only using like 10% of our brains. I mean, I guess maybe you and I are using 11.
Right.
I'm not
maybe
sure.
a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more than him, but not much more. I get it. So so here we go. We're going to strap ourselves in and get on the rocket ship that is the NBA season pretty much now because opening night is very soon.
I cannot wait. It is so close. We're recording this Sunday, October 8th. So we've got 10 days, 9 days?
Yeah. Wait, so it's the 16th, 17th?
It's the 17th.
Yes. So, so I am ready to go for that one. And we will be live tweeting that stuff all over the place. And so make sure you join us there. Maybe we'll even throw a live show in there after one of those games. Yeah,
that's my hope. I hope we recap the night. I mean, at least the first night. We got to, it's been too long. And it hadn't even been that long.
Yeah,
since the season. So
yeah, it's starting so early. So it actually it's shorter than normal. But let's break into it. Let's talk a little bit about some basketball stuff because I know you wanted to bring up a player that just signed an extension. And I don't know if you feel that it was worth it for the Nuggets. What do you think? And who are we talking about?
I think, Gary Harris, who was one of our sleepers, of course, and I made this bold statement where I said that by the end of the year, he may be a guy that we talk about as a fringe top 5 two-guard. I think he's right behind that Bradley Beal, DeMar DeRozan twosome. I think he's in that. I think he's slightly ahead of Rodney Hood for now.
Uh-oh. Right
now, but I think Rodney Hood stands to have a better individual season, offensively, especially because his usage rate is going to go sky high. Mm-hmm. But Gary Harris, to me, he scored 14, 15 a game last year, and I think he actually has a good shot at getting up to 18, 19 a game because Millsap is going to open up the floor for him even more. So he signed a 4-year, $84 million extension, but only $74 million is guaranteed. And from what I was reading today, that extra $10 million is going to be pretty hard for him to get. So for all intents and purposes, this is an $18.5 million a year contract, which for Gary Harris, it could wind up meaning that he's kind of cost himself some money by not waiting till next summer, if he has a great season. And the Nuggets maybe got a discount. But this was kind of what I expected him to get if he had waited till restricted free agency next summer anyway. Somewhere in the 17 to 18. He's a legit two-way wing. He can shoot threes. He can score. He's a great cutter. And in that offense, that's amazing. But he can really defend as well. And so this is good starter money. And I think that, both sides should be pretty happy with this.
Oh, I know. And, it's funny. He actually shot 42% on threes at 4.5 a game. In 31 minutes. And so I would imagine that's going to go up. He'll take more threes. And what I've seen so far in the preseason is he's in midseason form on his rhythm is good. He's really looking to get those shots. So I would imagine he can maintain that 40% 3-point shot at 6 attempts a game. All of a sudden now you're talking about your 16.5 points, and you're now maybe a couple more twos off of cuts, maybe a couple more minutes a game he's going to play. And I think that 18, 19, 20 point realm is not out of the question. And as a result, that's what happens. And there's no doubt the quality of shots should maintain, especially when you add Millsap. If not maintained from last year, better than last year. So again, we've already talked about this before, but the Nuggets are going to be a real problem.
Yeah, offensively for sure. They were the best offense in the league once Jokic started, joined the starting lineup permanently last year. And I think that offensively we know what they are. That their issue is defense, and then what are they getting out of their bench? They're not very deep on the wing, which thus makes Gary Harris even more important. They don't really have a backup three. I guess they're going to play Juancho Hernan-Gomez there, but he's a little ill-suited for that. And Moutier has just not done frankly, what I expected him to do, which was to develop some of his basic skills like shooting and ball handling. He's still depending on, he has elite size, and I think that it takes those guys a little bit longer because they have to get over the fact that when they get to the NBA, that elite size is not so elite. It's not like when you're in high school. If you're a high school senior and you're 6'5", 200 pounds, that's a big deal as a guard. And when you get to the NBA, it's like, okay, well, you're maybe a little bit taller than some ones, but it's not that big of a deal. They can just switch a guy onto you, or maybe you've got a guy by an inch and like 10 pounds. It's not as big of an advantage. And so if that's what you're falling back on, this is what you see with Moutier, in my opinion, in my experience.
Now, are we going to be able to see, Jamal Murray just run the point then?
That's what it looks like. And honestly, in their offense, it's not as important to have this, ball dominant point guard. I think you just need a guy who can, and Jamal Murray, in theory at least, can shoot. And so you just need a guy who can keep the ball moving and hit open shots. I believe Millsap, and we know Jokic is sort of the cornerstone of that offense. And I think Millsap's gonna work really well next to him. And I expect to see both of those guys working from the elbows and shooting more threes this year. They're going to have a lot of open shots. The problem is they're also going to give up a bunch on the other end. That might be rough.
Yeah, but there are a couple guys who could stand out. So you got Harris who can defend. Jokic, I guess, is not that much of a defender. He's got some length that perhaps he could bother something down there, but not something he really does well.
In his defense, though, it is tough as a when you're a guy who's not super mobile. Like if he was DeAndre Jordan's type of athlete, he could make up for some of the deficit at the point of attack. But Jamal Murray is not really a good defender, and he dies on screens quite a bit. And so it's tough when you get into that 1-5 pick and roll and the guy is just coming downhill. You really are in a tough position unless you're a supreme athlete like DeAndre Jordan. And so I think that if they find a way to make Jamal Murray's defense passable, if they scheme around it, or if he's just better, okay, then I think you'll see Jokic will take an uptick. But if they're 1 or 2 or 3 in offense, and they can make it to the 18th defense, that's 50 wins. We saw that with Phoenix a few years ago. What was it, 2010 or whatever, where they number 1 offense and like the 18th or 19th defense, and they won like 54, 55 games. I think it is a winning recipe for the regular season. The issue is once you get to the postseason, you're getting run off the floor.
Well, let's move on to another team that I think might have to be reckoned with a little bit this year, which is the Brooklyn Nets. I really feel like Cleveland, we kind of said it, and the Cleveland fans were sort of yelling at us saying, oh, that's a top 3 pick, no question. But I don't think it's a top 3 pick. What do you think?
They've got talent, man. And not only that, but the way they play. They play a team brand of basketball. You and I gush over the way this team plays. They're moving the ball. They're taking a lot of threes, which, it's high variance, but they have a lot of decent shooters. I love what I've seen out of the Jeremy Lin, D'Angelo Russell combo. Mozgov taking threes when they're available. I was talking about this summer, and people were calling me crazy, but I was like, a few years ago, he was working on this part of his game, and he just didn't get to showcase it in Cleveland. So, I think that they're going to be better. I don't think they're in the worst 3 in the league.
Okay.
And they have no incentive to tank.
Right.
So they're going to be going for it in March and April when a lot of teams are going to tank down.
Right.
So they're going to win a lot of games that maybe they wouldn't talent-wise, but they're going to win them because of other teams tanking. They have no incentive to tank.
Yeah.
So I think that unless that pick gets hit in the lottery, I think that's going to be like the 5th, maybe 6th, 7th pick.
Yeah. Well, let's look at the context here, because last year they won 20 games, and they've added so much more talent. It's kind of crazy. Allen Crabbe, Mozgov, Carroll. I'm assuming Jeremy Lin is going to be healthy or healthier. D'Angelo Russell. That's a lot of extra. Just on the bottom line, just like adding talent. Like that
second Second year, Karis LeVert, and he's healthy. And Karis LeVert is a guy that I really love. They also drafted Jarrett Allen, who I think is going to be decent. Maybe not as a rookie, but like going forward, they do have talent.
Yeah. So you have to imagine like they're going to go from 20 to like, I don't know, 27, 28, easy. You know, and I don't think 30, 32 wins is out of the possibility. And 32 wins, we have to go check it real quick. But I'd imagine 32 wins gets you, you're out of the top 6 of that, I think.
Probably. I mean, Chicago is going to be really bad, right? Orlando's probably not going to be very good. Phoenix is probably not going to be very good on purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the tricky part is like it's finding the teams that maybe have better talent, but or a better pool of talent, but they're going to tank.
Yeah, and like for instance, if you won 32 games compared to last year, there were 7 teams worse. Mm-hmm. So that's the 8th pick, right? If I do my math right. And so that's and you know what? That still is a decent pick for the Cavs, but it's certainly not like what they were hoping for out of this. And if Isaiah Thomas cannot get back healthy enough to really help them, then it was I think it's a bust trade for them.
Yeah, I mean, Jay Crowder, as much as I love him, like that's just, I mean, for talent, if all you really got was Jay Crowder and like let's say the number 7 pick for Kyrie, I think that's not great.
No, and also the context is when you have LeBron on your team, you're not in rebuilding mode. You're in win now mode. Like whatever your trade you're going to make needs to be to win a title. And that's right now it does not look like that has happened. Even if you want to take solace in the fact that pick could be a good pick, it still doesn't really cover you for this year. And then he's probably gone anyway. So it's an interesting conundrum for them. But we'll have to see how that's going to play out. But yeah, I'm high on the Nets. My friend of the breakdown, Spencer Dinwiddie, is looking better too. So they have some possibilities here, and I'm anxious to see how Kenny Atkinson is going to do this because he has a great reputation, and I would like to see it actually, some more evidence of that on the court.
And if nothing else, they're going to be one of those, league pass sleepers. I think they're going to be a team that, sort of like Philly last year, where it's like, okay, maybe they're not good, but they're at least fun to watch. They play a really fun style. They're moving the ball a lot. I like. They've got Rondé Hollis-Jefferson playing a lot more 4, which I think is where he's suited to play, and they're letting him grab and go, which is super smart. I mean, this is what we see from the Warriors with Draymond Green, and this is what we've seen with the Clippers with Blake Griffin, and this is, to me, when you've got a 4 that can grab the ball and go, and obviously your other 3 guys up front can do the same thing, that is the difference between taking a mediocre team and getting them to decent, right, than mediocre and staying mediocre. It just is a little bit of an advantage. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching them. I mean, I watch everybody, but I'm really looking forward to see what they can do. I'm rooting for them. I hope they make the playoffs. I think it would be amazing if they made the playoffs. And in the East, it could be 37 wins that makes the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned the word sleeper, which kind of reminds me of when I sleep in my underwear. Do you sleep in your underwear?
No comment.
Okay, because I don't know if people sleep and how are they like, but I sleep in my underwear, and I really like when I wear MeUndies underwear because it is really that soft that it's almost like you're sleeping in another soft sheets or something. I'm telling you, it really is an amazing experience, and not to mention the fact that when you're up and about and you're actually wearing them in regular during the day. They have this, they're just incredible, this diamond-shaped pouch. It really gives you some support. I can't tell you how much. I mean, you've seen me in my underwear, I guess, is what we're saying.
I have. I've seen the commercial.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, man, and the colors, I really love it. I mean, I have a pink color, and then unfortunately my yellow ones, my dog ate the crotch out of the yellow ones the other day, and that was really unfortunate, but I'm going to have to go back to, where you go back is you go to MeUndies.com, and if you go to MeUndies.com/CoachNick, you can get 20% off, free shipping, and their 100% satisfaction guarantee if you go there and order some MeUndies.
Well, the secret to the MeUndies. It's that modal fabric.
Yeah, that is what it is.
So soft. It's soft. It's like 10 times softer than cotton.
Or 3 times. But either way, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
By my touch, it's 10.
Yes, right. With the math,
That's yeah. No, unscientific there.
Right. So it's a no-brainer. Head over to MeUndies. I'm wearing them now, and I'm going to get some more myself. Go over to MeUndies.com/CoachNick. And remember, you get 20% off on that first purchase and 100% satisfaction guarantee. So it changed my life is what they want me to tell you. And it did. It really did. I really feel like you're a happier person when you have comfortable underwear.
Well, all right. So, I mean, quick, we're going to go on a tangent here, but most men go something like 8 years without replacing their underwear. And that's gross. And especially in the last 8 years, underwear technology has come a long way.
Yeah.
Right? In 2017, there's no excuse for having crappy underwear. MeUndies.com.
Right. I mean, listen, at any age, at any time, crappy underwear is just bad hygiene. So anyway.
That's right.
Speaking of hygiene, let's talk about the Rockets because I was gutting my eyeballs on some of what the Rockets are doing. And I got to tell you, offensively, as every year goes by, and we can talk about this as well as far as, like, every team now seems to have adopted, and I know everyone wants to run, get up early and get the ball up early and get easy shots, but it really feels like everyone's now adopted that. And they've adopted, the pistol action, which is either a handoff into a pick and roll or a pin down into a handoff on the wing and attacking from there, running out of the corner on a catch. And so it's really exciting when you start watching Harden and CP3 sort of mix and match their positions to attack out of that. I don't really know how defenses are going to handle it.
Yeah, so D'Antoni calls that that's like his 21 series, and they do a lot of stuff out of that. And honestly, it's all you have to do. And he's a huge proponent of keeping things simple.
Yeah,
and it's part of the reason why his teams score. Right, like everyone has a green light, and they keep it simple, and they're getting shots up quickly. And when you take a guy like Harden, who is lethal with the basketball in his hands, and you add a guy like Chris Paul, who's also lethal with the basketball in his hands. Oh, and hey, both of those guys happen to be pretty damn good off ball as catch and shoot shooters.
Oh yeah.
You're in for a world of hurt if you're playing against them. And add in Eric Gordon and Ryan Anderson and Clint Capella is not bad as a pick and roll partner. They have their offense is just it's gonna be potent. And I'm here for it, man. I'm all about it. I'm a D'Antoni guy. And I'm excited to see. This is probably the most talent he's ever had on one team. Yeah. Particularly because of the top two guys. I mean, you've got two guys that are for sure in the top 15 and maybe even top 10. And that's just insane. Like the offensive firepower they have.
Yeah.
And I love what I've seen so far. I mean, it's simple, but it's working.
Yeah, I mean, so they get pistol action, and then they throw in like the third player, like Ryan Anderson, who then picks and pops for three, and the other guys spot up, and so you got Harden is so good at that whip pass across the court to the weak side, and then they'll run a pick and roll up top, and they'll dive Capella, and then the weak side man has to bump down, and then boom, they're going to get that pass to a nice look for the three, and they got other shooters out there. I mean, Trevor Ariza looks good, and he always has looked better since he's gotten there anyway, because those shots are going to be even more open this year with CP3 up there. And by the way, Capella, two things. Capella has been handling the ball a little bit. Like, he seems a lot more comfortable on the perimeter, dribble pitch, even just handling it out there to kind of get from one spot to the other, which is a really interesting sign for them because you can really get five guys out and really clear the whole lane area to attack from the perimeter. So that would be really exciting. And dare I say it, CP3 might even be dribbling the ball less, like giving it up quicker and getting the ball moving quicker as opposed to what he was doing in LA. So it's going to be a real treat to watch how they run their offense.
Well, his buy-in is the key to this whole thing. Like Harden and the rest of those guys, they showed us last year. They've bought in. They believe. And I think getting Chris Paul, and again, remember, he wanted to come here. So he had to know what he was getting himself into. And so if he's buying in, that's huge for them. And it's going to – I think he might – and he's a very efficient player. He may have one of the most efficient years of his career just because of how open he's going to be. And then if we recall the playoff series against San Antonio, what they did – San Antonio just ran them off the three-point line and closed down the paint. And they were giving up the mid-range, and Houston couldn't capitalize. Well, guess who's one of the best mid-range shooters in the last 20 years?
Chris Paul.
Chris Paul.
Yeah.
And so Chris Paul will feast on those shots that Houston hadn't been able to capitalize on. And he's almost the perfect guy to add into the mix. Now, again, this is all, as long as he's playing ball, as long as he's moving the ball early, getting to his spots and doing the things that he needs to do within that offense. Now, if he starts pounding the rock, how long are they going to stay happy? That's my one concern. But what we've seen so far, so good.
Oh, I know. I can't wait. And here's the thing is, all these teams are now moving to the same sort of offense, right? We see a lot of teams throwing the ball low post and splitting like the Warriors do. We see a lot of pistol action. We're seeing obviously the high pick and roll everybody runs, and we're seeing guys, them spraying the floor wide and getting as up the court as fast as they can. So as all these teams start playing the same way, I really am curious to see how that's going to what the game is going to be like. That's part of the difference, because I think that obviously the 3-point shot attempts can continue to go up a little bit more, and they keep going up every year. And I think that it could very well make the game worse. Like, I don't know if we're going to sort of enjoy watching the game, and if every team just sort of plays the same way.
I think that you'll see variations, obviously, because, the talent discrepancy is there. The Warriors are special because Steph Curry can take a 35-footer and it's like he's shooting a free throw. Mm-hmm. And so it's that allows them to do some things that other teams can't. They also have Draymond Green, and, so they've got some special personnel that allows them to do some different things. And same with Houston, right? So not every team has a guy that can pass like James Harden. That whip pass, it's like him and LeBron James. Right. It's like two guys in the league that can throw that pass that way, that consistently, and that late. Those two, and that's one of the underrated things about the way they can throw that pass, is they can throw that pass early or they can wait. And so they're both really good at baiting the defense and making that pass. So I think that's what you're going to see. Teams are going to try to play that way, but personnel is going to dictate it. I mean, the Nuggets don't play that way. They cut. They're taking a lot of shots at the hoop because they're cutting, and then they get their threes off of that when the defense collapses on the cutter. So, I think that also as defenses catch up, we'll see even more evolution of what that is.
Right, and you can also argue that if these teams are running the same actions, then they'll be better at defending it because they're just used to doing it in practice and they know better. And again, that will then beget other things. And also Denver, they're going to have Jokic bring the ball up X amount of times, and that's going to be a different look, which also could then, again, we'll probably see that a little bit more. And I would imagine maybe Minnesota is going to do that a little bit with Karl Anthony Towns. And I'm trying to think of who else. I don't know if KP is going to bring it up.
Probably not,
much,
but I bet Boogie brings the ball up some in New Orleans. I mean, he did it in Sacramento.
Yeah,
that's another grab and go guy, right? And so that grab and go thing. If you get your four doing it, it's amazing. But if your five can do it, I mean, you're unlocking a whole new just thing that most teams can't do. This is why the Warriors with their small ball lineup is so special.
Absolutely.
Because Draymond can grab the ball and he's fast with the basketball. I mean, I don't know. I wish we had the Sport View data so we actually knew how fast these guys were going up the court. But when I watch Draymond with the basketball, he looks way faster than he runs without it.
Draymond looks much faster without the ball?
No, with the ball.
Oh, with the ball.
He looks really fast with the ball. I would love to know how fast he is. Like when he grabs a defensive rebound and starts a break, I want to know how fast. And if anybody out there listening happens to know, I know we've got some listeners that are in high places. And so if you know, feel free to hit us up and let us know how fast Draymond comes off the defensive rebound for the break.
And by the way, the other key to that is because you could argue that, of course, the pass goes faster than a guy running with the ball, but what it allows the Warriors to do is get Clay and Steph and all their shooters just spotted up even earlier without having to deal with bringing the ball up. So that is one of the things, which is why Russ, doing it, you could argue was good. Although I still argue that him getting a outlet pass at the hash would be better than him getting the rebound. But whatever.
Right. Well, and that's another personnel thing, right? Because OKC didn't have the shooters that the Warriors have. Yeah. And the other thing is that the Warriors are almost all really good at finishing at the basket, and OKC is not at all. Russ is not good at the basket, as you've pointed out in I don't know how many videos you've made about it.
Just one video and some tweets, perhaps.
Tweets. Yeah, but and it's not that he's bad at it; he's just average.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. I mean, he's just not as good as everyone thinks as far as when they think he's incredible and elite and one of the best. But, it kind of reminds me of when you talk about Rush, you also talk about how he dresses when he goes to the games. You ever see those shots?
Oh, man, that's my guy, man. I love that.
You do? It's pretty off the wall what he wears sometimes.
Yeah.
He's
got pizzazz.
Pizzazz. Well, if you want that kind of pizzazz, Dave, or anybody else listening, you should try Bombfell. Because Bombfell is an amazing place to get clothes that they will send to you, and you basically have your own stylist that works for you and knows what you like, and they every month will send you clothes that will fit what you do, and you can rate them and tell them if you like it or not. And it's fully personalized. It's awesome. I love it. I mean, I have some nice slacks and a button-down shirt I wore out this weekend and to impress my family, my mom's birthday party. And I mean, I'm telling you, would you ever be willing to buy clothes online?
Yeah, absolutely. I buy clothes online all the time. I haven't used Bombfell, but maybe they'd be interested in sending us some stuff for this season for the live shows.
Oh, I'm going to get on
work that out. Yeah,
absolutely.
We should work that out.
Bombfell, dear Bombfell, send us more clothes, and Dave needs some clothes.
That's right.
Because it's the most simple, straightforward service around. And if you don't like the stuff, you can just send it back. It doesn't cost you anything. So that's the other thing that's really cool about that. So Bombfell, it's BOMBFELL, and if you go to bombfell.com/Coach Nick, you get a deal. What is that deal? You get $25 off your first order if you go there. So bombfell.com/Coach Nick, and you can get that $25 off. And they also have the best tagline that I've ever heard from a company. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Open and clothes.
That's all right. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good,
Pretty good, because they send you a box.
They do. You open and clothes instead of open and close.
There you go.
So I'm telling you. So it's and the Bombfell, I guess it's more like kind of like bombshell. Like you are,
That's right.
You'd be a bombshell if you're wearing their clothes because you look so good. So
yeah.
Definitely check them out. I love it. You guys will love it too. So let's talk about Russ and OKC a little bit. Paul George. I like Paul George. I like how he's. By the way, I like what they're doing on offense. Perhaps this is finally the time we're going to see Russ exist in an offense. What do you think?
I think that at this point, I mean, he sort of, I think he understood last year. Look, from everything I've seen and heard, he sort of understood what last year was, right? And just like we all know, I think Russ is also in on this. I mean, and I think that he knew that to compete, he needed help, which is why they got Paul George. And I'm sure he talked to Paul George ahead of time. All these players do. It's why Carmelo waived his no trade clause to come to OKC, because I'm sure they talked. I know that they played in the pickup game up in New York. So, there was definitely some communication of some sort. So maybe this is him saying, yeah, you know what? I read the tea leaves. I understand I need to do this stuff to be better. And maybe we get to see the best for us. And this is what you and I talk about all the time, is like the guy is so freaking talented that he is able to succeed despite some of his flaws that he keeps, he kind of keeps repeating some of the same mistakes.
Right.
And maybe by having two talented guys with him at this point in his career, he'll actually be able to avoid those.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul George and Carmelo Anthony are both elite spot up guys.
Yeah. Yeah, and what it's interesting, and they understand how Paul George likes to play. They're getting him pinned down on the right side of the floor, so he can kind of be moving towards left when he catches. And so they've gotten that down. They do a lot of slice cuts for him, sort of that first cut out of the flex offense, a screen at the block where he cuts across the lane. And they're looking to get him post-ups that way, or they're looking to get him across, and then he can fly up to the high post and moving him around there. And so the offense, the ball seems to be moving more. But then again, the only caveat is that because of the training camp and it's fresh, their training camp is fresh, what they're working on. Most of these teams will probably run the best offense you'll see now, early in the season when the coach has the most influence before it gets loose and they don't have a lot of practices. But so far, I mean, I do see a lot more than I normally have seen. And we've heard KD criticize Donovan, for to me, it's probably more like not without exerting enough control. But to me, it also is meaning like not clever enough offense.
Yeah, and this was one of my concerns when they hired him in the first place. I went over some of the Florida tape, and he didn't. In college basketball is a different animal. I get it. So I try to reserve judgment, but nothing that he did really stood out. Is different than like Brad Stevens. When you see, oh yeah, Brad Stevens run some stuff in college that he could totally bring straight to the NBA. And Hoiberg, you thought at least. Hoiberg's issue is getting buy-in from the players, and Donovan at least has been good on that part at getting. I think the player relationship part, he's done a decent job of. But it's enacting a vision. I guess whether he has one or not, is the issue. And so, and I guess I didn't go. I was kind of offline during the whole KD Twitter thing.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, Billy Donovan was one of the things he brought up in defending himself with the fake Twitter account. So, I think when you get to see, especially when you have a guy who played in it and then got to see it, in an ideal scenario like Golden State, I tend to trust a guy like Kevin Durant.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to read the tell-all book. I'm waiting for someone out there to write it because there's not a lot of, there's only a couple different possibilities of like what happened and why he left, right? And there's obviously there's only a few possibilities of like what was going on with their offense and why it would devolve into just ISO. And based on the decision that Kevin Durant made, right? And they were 3 plays from beating them anyway and going on, so he could have stayed and like taken another shot at them, but. There was some reason why the offense left him, unsatisfied. And if it's Russ dictating it as the point guard, and kind of torpedoing things, and that's why he left, and maybe Donovan not calling him out on it, or not getting on him to do it, run it more, and maybe KD is not very confrontational, so he wasn't going to do it, and then maybe even just said, "F it, I'm going to do it too." I don't know. I'm throwing the Russ under the bus here, but. There's only or you flip it and you switch Russ with KD, like how I just described it, and what else can it be?
I think they both have to kind of take shoulder some blame if we're throwing blame around, because they did take turns and it was a real thing. I mean, you and I have talked about it. The KD standing 30 feet from the basket and just waiting for Russ to pass him the ball. That's not good offense on KD's part. Now maybe you could argue, well, he knew he wasn't going to get the ball, and then now it's on the coach. But the coach's job is to get buy-in from his players, and if you're not giving them a system to buy into, then there's an issue. But it looks like they might actually have one this year, and Russ is going along with it. I mean, it's preseason. Like we'll couch every single statement, like Kyle Kuzma being top 10 player in the NBA, right? Like we'll couch it by saying, well, it's only the preseason. Yeah.
But this is Russ's year. I am completely and willing and open to enjoying him play and having him completely change my mind about how he plays. This is it. This is the chance for us to finally see how that works. I think it's his point of his career where he's kind of maybe at that point where he can do that. And certainly Melo this is his last stand and he needs it to work. And then Paul George is right in the middle of all this. And so, and by the way, Paul George is the perfect complementary player for that. So they did pretty well. I was kind of thinking about this because as we wrap up, what was the team that needed to be signed this offseason to really compete with the Warriors? And I think the only way you could really have done it is if whatever team it was, you needed both Jimmy Butler and Paul George. That was the combination you needed to be able to get, I think. Not Melo and Paul George. It was Jimmy Butler and Paul George to then compete with the Warriors. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you there. But I think that the one thing is like having the guy who can be that 4-5. And I think that's what we're not – like we don't talk enough about that. What the Warriors are able to do at the 4 and 5 when they take Zaza out and they're not playing JaVale McGee, when they can play Durant and Draymond Green together at 4 and 5, that's when other teams get run off the court. I mean, that's when Tristan Thompson looks like a D-leaguer or G-leaguer, sorry. Mm-hmm. That's when you see like Enes Kanter can't come on the court. That's like right. Stuff like that. And so that's really, to me, like, yes, you need to get Jimmy Butler and Paul George, but you also need a guy who can be
Wait,
the 5.
Well,
and I know that's crazy.
Well, no,
George.
if you're running 4-5, Draymond and KD, then you can run Paul George and Jimmy Butler kind of 4-5 too to some degree. I mean, Paul George against Draymond is a little bit interesting, but that could actually be crazily interesting too.
Well, Patrick Patterson is super interesting. And this is why. So OKC, and I think Sam Presti has just done an incredible job. I actually talked about that on my podcast. I think he won the summer, obviously, and he's going to be the executive of the year most likely, just because he really performed some magic, not only making those 2 trades, but signing Patrick Patterson to that discounted deal and getting Russ to re-sign. I mean, that's just the guy, he really killed it, and good for everybody. I'm glad Russ is making money. That's generational changing money. His grandkids won't have to think about paying for college or any of those type of things. That's amazing. But it's great for Sam Presti and OKC because it's a small market. They're not really this huge free agent destination, and Sam Presti really killed it. But interesting to me is having Russ, Robertson, Paul George, Carmelo, and Patrick Patterson. Because Carmelo, as a scorer, he's such a threat, especially at catch and shoot. He shot 43% last year on a team that didn't really have any space. So I just think that's an interesting lineup. Now, do I think they can hang with the Warriors? No way. But it's at least closer than almost everybody else.
Yeah. No, they are uniquely situated to do something against them, I think, maybe more than anybody else defensively. So we shall see what happens, and if Donovan can, do all that coaching stuff as well, which they're going to need too against Kerr. So very fascinating stuff. Great podcast. I think we went through a lot of really good stuff. We covered a really good gamut. Yeah,
I was actually kind of surprised that we were able to get through so much stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, it's just par for the course as you and I continue our journey through the NBA.
There we go.
So, all right, well, good. We're looking forward to this is kicking off. We'll hit you up again on what Friday we're talking about for another pod.
Yeah, I think so. We're going Monday, Friday, right?
Yeah, let's do Monday, Friday.
Except for once the season starts, and I'm sure we'll pop in whenever.
Yeah, I mean,
we'll pop in a little bit more. But
and James on Wednesday. So, thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you every Monday now, bright and early on your commute to work. And don't forget, sports fans, at BBALL Breakdown, we're not a channel, we are a conversation. You in? Are you in, Dave?
I believe so. I think so.
Own that. Come on.
Yes, I am in. All in.